Hi, I'm Sophia. They thought my silence meant weakness. They thought I was broke. What they didn't know was that I was watching, learning, waiting. And when I finally made my move, it was already too late for them. When my father passed away, everything changed overnight. At least, that's what everyone believed. My stepmother stepped into control like she had been waiting for it. At the funeral, she cried the loudest. She thanked everyone for their support. She looked strong, composed, responsible. And I stood there quietly. A week later, she called a family meeting. She sat in my father's chair and began talking about burdens, the house, the company, the finances. Then she looked at me. "Sophia isn't ready for any of this," she said gently. "She's too emotional. She doesn't understand how money works." No one questioned her. From that moment, her version of me became the truth. At business dinners, she introduced me as my late husband's sensitive daughter. Sensitive. That word followed me everywhere. I heard the whispers. She won't survive in the real world. She doesn't have the discipline. She's lucky someone responsible is in charge. I never argued. I never defended myself. And that silence made them even more confident. They thought I was weak. What they didn't see were the nights I stayed up studying company reports, the contracts I reviewed, the numbers I memorized. While they underestimated me, I was observing. Every careless decision she made, I noticed. Every risky deal she signed, I recorded. Every loyal employee she replaced, I remembered. The more comfortable she became, the more mistakes she made. At family dinners, when they laughed about how quiet I was, I simply listened. I wasn't embarrassed. I was learning. They thought I had nothing, no power, no influence, no future. But they misunderstood one thing. The most dangerous person in the room isn't the loudest one. It's the one who's watching. And I was watching everything. Before my father passed away, he gave me something far more valuable than money. He gave me knowledge. Most people think inheritance is cash, property, or control. But my father believed in preparation. While my stepmother focused on appearances, he quietly taught me how the company truly operated. He showed me where the real leverage was, hidden clauses in contracts, silent partners, long-term investments no one paid attention to. He trusted me with information no one else cared to understand. After he was gone, I didn't fight for control. I studied. I reviewed years of financial reports. I analyzed patterns in revenue. I noticed which departments were bleeding money and which ones were quietly profitable. And then I saw it. My stepmother was making aggressive decisions. Flashy expansions. Risky partnerships. Short-term gains for long-term instability. She wanted to look powerful. I wanted to be prepared. While she hosted events and posed for photos, I was building relationships behind the scenes. I reconnected with investors my father respected. I listened more than I spoke. And slowly, I started investing. Not loudly, not recklessly, quietly. I purchased small amounts of shares through legal channels. Nothing dramatic, nothing noticeable, just enough to build position. Every time she dismissed me in public, it helped me. Because the more invisible I seemed, the less anyone questioned my moves. They believed I was emotionally broken. But I wasn't grieving blindly. I was calculating. Late at night, when the house was silent, I would sit with my laptop and track market shifts. I watched the company's valuation fluctuate. I waited for the right moment. Patience became my advantage. She underestimated strategy. And I understood timing. By the time she realized the company was under pressure, I was no longer just the sensitive daughter. I was a shareholder. And I was ready. The collapse didn't happen all at once. It started quietly. A delayed payment here. A failed partnership there. An investor pulling out without warning. At first, my stepmother dismissed it as temporary instability. She reassured the board. She smiled in interviews. She doubled down on risky decisions, convinced confidence alone could fix structural cracks. But numbers don't respond to confidence. They respond to reality. Within months, suppliers began demanding upfront payments. Internal departments started questioning leadership. The company's valuation began to slip, slowly at first, then faster than anyone expected. And that's when the emergency meeting was called. The boardroom felt different that morning. Tense. Heavy. The kind of silence that comes before something breaks. I arrived early. Not because I was nervous. Because I was ready. When my stepmother walked in, she didn't look powerful anymore. She looked tired. The confidence in her posture had faded. The sharp tone in her voice was replaced with urgency. She began presenting numbers, loss projections, liquidity problems, legal exposure. For the first time, she didn't have answers. Halfway through the meeting, one of the senior board members interrupted her. "What's the recovery plan?" She paused. And for the first time since my father passed, she looked at me. Not with superiority, not with dismissal, but with uncertainty. She knew something had shifted. I let the silence stretch. Then I calmly slid a folder across the table. No dramatic speech. No emotional outburst. Just paper. Inside that folder were legal documents confirming what I had been building for months. Majority ownership. Through patient acquisition of undervalued shares. Through strategic agreements with silent investors. Through clauses my father had once explained to me in detail. Every move had been legal. Every step had been deliberate. The room grew still as the board members reviewed the documents. One by one, their expressions changed. Confusion. Shock. Realization. My stepmother's hands tightened around the edge of the table. "This isn't possible," she whispered. But it was. While she focused on image, I focused on infrastructure. While she chased attention, I built leverage. While she underestimated me, I secured control. One of the board members cleared his throat. "It appears Sophia now holds controlling interest. Not sensitive daughter. Not emotional liability. Sophia. Controlling interest." The shift in language said everything. My stepmother looked at me, searching for anger, revenge, humiliation. She expected me to embarrass her the way she had embarrassed me. But I didn't. Power doesn't need to shout. I stood up slowly. "I never wanted conflict," I said calmly. "I wanted stability. The company deserves leadership that protects it, not performs for it." No one interrupted. No one laughed. The same room that once dismissed me now waited for my next words. "I'll be restructuring executive roles. Effective immediately. Professional. Direct. Final." My stepmother's authority dissolved in that moment, not through drama, but through documentation. Security escorted her out of the executive wing later that afternoon. There were no screams. No public scandals. Just consequences. As I walked into my father's old office for the first time as CEO, I paused for a moment. Not to celebrate, but to reflect. They had mistaken my silence for weakness. They thought grief had broken me. They thought exclusion had diminished me. They thought humiliation had defeated me. But silence isn't surrender. It's strategy. And patience, when combined with knowledge, becomes power. I didn't destroy her reputation. I didn't seek revenge in the loud, reckless way they expected. I simply positioned myself so that when the system failed under poor leadership, I was already prepared to take control. Sometimes the strongest move isn't reacting. It's waiting. And when the door finally opens, you don't knock. You own the building. That evening, the office was unusually quiet. News travels fast in corporate spaces. The same employees who once overlooked me now greeted me with steady respect. I walked into my father's office slowly. For a moment, I simply stood there. Not celebrating. Reflecting. Months of silence. Months of whispers. Months of being underestimated. My stepmother paused at the doorway before leaving the building for the last time. She didn't insult me. She didn't argue. She just looked at me, trying to understand how the quiet girl had taken control of everything. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't remind her of the humiliation. I simply said, "You should have respected my silence." No anger. No revenge speech. Just truth. She nodded once and walked away. And that was it. No public humiliation. No shouting. No chaos. Because real power doesn't need noise. Revenge isn't about destroying someone. It's about outgrowing them. They thought silence meant weakness. But silence was strategy. And when the time came, I didn't knock on the door. I owned the building. Never underestimate the quiet one. Silence isn't weakness. It's preparation. When you move in silence, your success makes the noise. If you believe respect is earned, not demanded, subscribe to Silent Honor. I'm Sophia. And remember, the quiet ones always win in the end.